Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, our guest today is Shay Farley from Alabama Appleseed. And the V Team takes a look at controversial issues, gay marriage, and pro-life in Alabama. Also, Huntsville pulls the trigger with Remington. A good deal or more corporate welfare? All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
Speaking of,
and what is this for?
I think we better give it to Rufus. They may need that somewhere in one of the outer counties.
Is this for one of my clients or something?
Well, or what we were talking about this weekend, but you know.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we cover the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V Team. Welcome, everyone.
Those really aren't mine, by the way.
We're definitely comfortable carrying them around.
Well, we know that there are people who will need handcuffs from time to time, so they're there in case anyone needs to borrow them. This week, big events in Alabama. Remington announced that it's coming to Huntsville, and they're bringing 2,000 jobs over the next 10 years. However, it's costing a pretty penny. Claire? You got any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think it's exciting that we're, you know, getting Remington. We are a gun-toting state. We believe in that. We believe in hunting, and some of us believe in killing.
Present company
and, you know,
not included. Surely you didn't.
Anyway, it's very exciting, and we've lured this company from the state of New York. So, I mean, it'll be great for the North Alabama, Huntsville, and I'm just excited for everybody, you know, for the whole state. And of course, we all know that any time a company comes to Alabama, there's a lot of incentives that we give away.
Right.
And you just have to know that you pay through those incentives just over the last, you know, the next 5 to 10, sometimes 20 years when we got Mercedes, and a lot of people thought that was a bad deal because we gave them tax breaks for 20 years. But in the end, it's the jobs, the employment of people, and the taxes they pay.
Well, and when I heard that it was $60 million was the incentive package, I started looking at that in comparison to the other incentive packages we've given businesses to come to Alabama. Honda was $158 million, Hyundai was $253 million, Airbus was $159, ThyssenKrupp was nearly $1 billion, and Mercedes was $253 million. So it really is.
It's really not bad.
You know, for me, I'd love to see some people, and I'm happy they're coming, but I'd like to see some folks recruiting Alabama businesses to their state. You know, I'd really love to see us promote our entrepreneurs so we start having big businesses that are homegrown, but I'm happy they're here. Maybe we'll get a discount on some ammo.
Well, they say there's only 3 ways to actually create wealth, and everything else is sort of skimming off the top: mining, manufacturing, and agriculture. We have a great agricultural base in the state. Right. We've been doing some mining with natural resources, coal, oil, gas, and we're starting in the last 10 or 15 years to really pick up the manufacturing component. I think all of those things are good for the state. I do have some concerns about these cash giveaways. The ThyssenKrupp backfired badly and cost the state a hundreds of millions of dollars, a pretty penny. And you know, you hope that they have learned from that and gotten some clawback provisions. Anytime you bid on something, you necessarily overpay because the next person that was going to get it would pay less.
Right.
And so we got to keep that in mind as we're bidding for all these jobs that are coming over here.
And Barron raises a good point, though, about ThyssenKrupp. I mean, they announced they were being sold to a German-Japanese conglomerate at the end of last year, and one of the things their spokesperson said is, we don't have any responsibility to pay back any of those incentives because we believe we've complied with all of the terms of our agreement with the state.
Well,
but, you know, listen, back to all economic development, you know, the state of Alabama, we are now considered, you know, the Motor City. We've taken over the state of Michigan in car manufacturing. You know, the bottom line is we have seen tremendous growth in economic development, recruiting, corporations coming to Alabama literally since 1994. Okay, out of all the ones we've recruited, okay, ThyssenKrupp has crumbled. So, you know, out of about 20 and one crumbles, that's not too bad in the end.
Everybody took credit for this. It seems like everybody and their brother. The real credit, I think, goes to the folks of Huntsville and especially the mayor, Tommy Battles. They put this thing together. The rest of the state piled on.
And it was a good win after the Boeing fell through.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
you know, Greg Canfield, who does all the economic development, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's been very active all over the state and has worked very close with the folks in Huntsville there.
We appreciate all the work the folks do to bring jobs into the state. We hope they bring good jobs. One of the things that's happening right now, Bradley Burns getting some blowback about saying that he thinks that gay marriage should be a states' rights issue. I got several emails from people who say, oh, no, 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 this must be a federal issue. We've got to stop this. Virginia just had a big deal where their gay marriage, anti-gay marriage thing was struck down.
And it's not the only one. In the last 8 weeks, you've had federal judges in Virginia, Utah, Oklahoma, Kentucky, and Ohio who've either struck down state bans on same-sex marriages or have severely cast doubt on those bans. And one of the things that all of those judges point to was the decision the U.S. Supreme Court made when it reached its ruling this past summer on the Defense of Marriage Act. And a lot of the language in that opinion is used as the basis for this. I think so. It's coming. It's going to be. I know Patricia Todd has a bill in the Alabama legislature this year to recognize same-sex marriages, and I don't think that's going to get a whole lot of traction, honestly. But from a federal perspective, I think that we will see a shift.
Why is it not a states' rights issue? Why do these guys want to make it a federal issue?
Well, they want to make it a federal issue because they don't like the outcome of some of these states. Right. They don't like that California and Massachusetts are sort of leading the charge on this. I think the bigger issue on this is should the government be in the business of marriage at all?
Right, right.
The idea that you have to go register your marriage and get some sort of federal benefit or state benefit for being married is absurd. Historically, it's not the way it was. They want to go back and cite biblical principles and all these types of things. The reality is the Bible was not saying that the state should be getting involved in this. It was a sacrament. It was between two people, their God and their community. And I think it should go back that way, and we should disconnect all benefits related to marriage. And let sort of the free market work.
And it's going to be here in Alabama here shortly. I mean, was it the Southern Poverty Law Center just in the last 2 weeks filed a federal lawsuit regarding the recognition of marriage licenses from other states?
We got about 1 more minute. I want to get to one last thing, and that's dual enrollment. They passed a bill to make dual enrollment for folks that want to go to technical schools while they're going to high school. Sounds like a good idea, except they've started more of these SGO giveaways. Bob Riley's made about $900,000 on his latest venture. What's y'all's thoughts on this?
You know, I don't understand why we have to take public money out of the public school system and give it to private people in order to facilitate a public purpose. Why do we need a private middleman taking money out of the top? What's the big argument for sending money, against sending money to Washington to have it come back in form of welfare benefits? One of the best arguments is the bureaucracy takes off the top. Here we just created a private bureaucracy to skim off the top, and I think it's unnecessary.
Well, it's an interesting thing. Somebody's going to make a ton of money off this deal.
Well, it's greed. It's simply greed.
Well, I agree. We're going to have to get out of here. We've got our guest coming up, Shay Farley with Alabama Appleseed. You're watching The V. We'll be right back.
The V is sponsored by Spot On Strategies Group. Here's what customers are saying about WeatherGuard Lifetime Metal Roofing.
Knocked the roof out in about a day and a half, and then they threw in our shed with the spare parts they had. It was just a wonderful blessing to the fire station.
The tax credit was a big bonus.
Hello, I'm Robert Wells, president of WeatherGuard. We are a family-owned business, and we will back our lifetime warranty for generations to come.
Come by our showroom on Alton Road in Birmingham. WeatherGuard Lifetime Metal Roofing, 533-7322.
In 1977, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. The odds of that same boy then making it to the US and European Pro Golf Tours, 1 in 7 million. The odds of the Big Easy winning the US Open twice, 1 in 1.2 billion. The odds of him having a child diagnosed with autism, 1 in 88. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Our guest today is Shay Farley, legal director of Alabama Appleseed. Welcome, Shay.
Thank you so much, Phil, for having me.
I've known you for so long, I call you Shay instead of Ms. Farley. I hope that's okay.
By all means, please, let's not be formal.
A lot of things going on this year, but one of them that you have fought a battle for many, many years is against payday lending and title lending, the exorbitant fees that people have to pay to get those type of loans. Can you tell me what type of success you're having and why this big battle?
Sure. So first I want to say that there's a crisis going on in Alabama that very few people are paying attention to. This year there's a lot more attention being paid to it thanks to last year's legislative efforts. But like you said, it's been an uphill battle. Probably not even a battle yet. We're still in the minor activity zone.
Right.
But the problem is there is major money on the other side that is blocking anything from progressing in the legislature. This year, on the title bill alone, we had 54 co-sponsors in the House. Now, by any math, that is over half the people sitting in the House chamber. And so we would have a vote on the floor in a positive direction if we could get it there. The problem, as it was last year, continues to be the committee this year. We just can't get any movement.
Many of the committee members, and I know AL Reporter reported it, AL.com, all the big papers have reported it. Many of the committee members have taken substantial financial contributions from the payday and title lending lobbyists.
Sure.
I mean, groups. That's really a problem, and I think people would see that as a problem, that these are paid guns paying for legislation.
Absolutely, and I think that there are two things to think about. One is a positive. As a public official, I would not say anybody should not get money. If it's within your moral compass to take money, but you have to consider any issue that is before you in the lens of your population that you represent, a lens of your constituency. And when that money blocks that vision from being clear, then that's a problem. The other issue is behind the scenes. You know, we passed an ethics reform bill in Alabama where people are supposed to report things, but there's activities like special trips or let's have a opportunity to hear about this issue and a dinner and all of these things that won't show up on a campaign finance reform. I'm sorry, a campaign finance report.
Right.
And so we're not sure how many of these other extracurricular activities are going on. So while I'm not going to fault somebody for public campaign donations unless it leans and tips over to where you're not going to vote on an issue. And unfortunately, that's where it seems that we're at. When you have people saying, I like your issue, I want your bill to come out, sit down and talk, and that's where we're at. But the problem is the industry lobbyists will blame us and say, well, they're not willing to compromise. To this date, I've been working on this issue for 6 years. No lobbyist on either a payday or title bill has said, let's sit down, Shay. Now, there's only two groups working on this, Alabama Rise and Appleseed. They know who we are. They could find us at any point. So what we're going to do is we're going to, Representative Scott is going to host a meeting next Tuesday. I'll call for anybody who's willing to come sit down. And if not, he'll take it back to the committee and mandate attention.
So you're basically saying, you're kind of calling out these lobbyists for the payday and title lenders saying, we want to meet on neutral ground, come meet us at this time.
Right, and I'm not saying we have to leave bloodied and badgered with some deal on the table, but if we do not start the conversation, then that means the conversation is being had behind the scenes. That's not public policy, that's not democracy. So we are saying, come to us, we've given you our proposal, we wrote bills, there's bills pending right now with 54 co-sponsors on them. We're ready to discuss it, but until we sit down, then we're not going to get anywhere.
You know, I don't know if everyone knows, but the The interest rate on these loans is between 300 and 400%.
That's absolutely right.
Most folks would call that usury. Even Scott Beeson, one of the most conservative Republicans in the state, called it usury.
We have had not just Scott Beeson, but we have had Arthur Orr came out recently in his paper and said something needs to be done about this immorality. We have the governor who is extremely supportive of, in reforming our immoral laws. We have the state banking department trying to do a database. They were immediately sued by the industry. Plenty of people are interested in doing something about it. But yeah, and with the usury, we've got to do something that says, as a state, we will stand on our moral high ground here. We are moral about guns, abortion, recruiting jobs. We are everything in the center focused, and right now we've wobbled off that.
You know, to me, and we rarely editorialize, but to me, this is something that has to be addressed, and as long as the lobbyists are running the show, it's not going to be. So I applaud you for that. What else are you guys working on?
Sure. Appleseed is very interested in the constitutional revision work that's being done. We've been monitoring that legislation. In fact, there's a committee hearing this week where several of the issues are being explored. We are concerned about exemption rates, and basically that's what you can protect in your property if you're sued by a creditor, and that's part of the constitutional revision. Been following the Medicaid issue, but as you know, that's not going anywhere right now.
You know, and that's another that some folks think is a moral issue to extend Medicaid. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, to be honest, it's not my project. It's my executive director.
Okay.
But I will say this, we wholeheartedly believe in the position that has been given by UAB and other researchers that says this will help people that are of low income. It will give insurance to those who can least afford it and need our help. That, again, is a moral issue. And as far as the economic development concerned, we're talking about jobs and creations from the government.
6 years of working on payday lending and title lending. Are you hopeful?
Cautiously optimistic. I think with enough people talking about it, as I hear at the State House folks talking about it, I don't see why we're not getting there.
Isn't ALCAP behind you guys this time?
Yeah, ALCAP, the Alabama Federation of Republican Women. I mean, this is a bipartisan issue. It's a statewide coalition, the Alliance for Responsible Lending, of which my organization is a part of. People are speaking. Every major editorial has covered this issue. Newspapers are behind us. The public's behind us. It's just the industry. They will not sit down to talk.
We want to thank you for continuing the fight and wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you.
You're watching The V. Our guest has been Shay Farley from Alabama Appleseed. We'll be right back with the V team to wrap up the rest of the show. Thank you.
The V is sponsored by Ginger Barbie, attorney at law. And MediaWorks Communications, video production services for all your video production needs. Here's what customers are saying about WeatherGuard Lifetime Metal Roofing.
Knocked the roof out in about a day and a half, and then they threw in our shed with the spare parts they had. It was just a wonderful blessing to the fire station.
The tax credit was a big bonus.
Hello, I'm Robert Wells, president of WeatherGuard. We are a family-owned business, and we will back our lifetime warranty for generations to come.
Come by our showroom on Alton Road in Birmingham. WeatherGuard Lifetime Metal Roofing, 533-7322.
It's time to take a road trip.
In Alabama, the road and the restaurants are calling. We've elevated barbecue to an art form, a meat masterpiece. Fine dining your thing? National awards are putting us on the map.
Because everything's fresh and local.
And if you like your dinner with a view, well, you can't beat this. Alabama has a road trip with your name on it.
Which one you gonna take?
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Well, Shay Farley has been fighting a tough, tough battle. It's going to be hard to beat the lobbyist on this.
She got a long road ahead of her. Yeah. I hate to say that.
Well, when you ask her what she thought her chances were, I think she said cautiously optimistic.
Right.
She needs to stick with cautiously.
Yeah, I wouldn't be so optimistic.
You know, when you get people like Scott Beeson and Arthur Orr on your side, your battle may get a little easier. I don't know. Scott leaving the
with friends
Senate.
like those, who needs enemies?
Oh,
now be nice, be nice.
No.
Just saying.
I got to take up for my Republican friends.
You know, Scott Beeson is one of my favorite people. I love Scott. I hate to see him leave the Senate. I really do, but we wish him all the best. You know, the House took up some very, very controversial bills in a lot of folks' minds. Pro-life bills, the state's mostly pro-life, but these bills are going to pose a problem. You know, Eric Johnson, who wrote one of these bills, said, I expect it to be challenged, and we hope it is.
It's an election year, y'all.
Yeah.
But I think as somebody who was in the committee meeting where these bills were up, Mary Sue McClurkin said, I don't have to worry about it, I'm not running again. So somebody like her can offer these bills again. But Johnson is right. The fetal heartbeat bill, the one where they say that once a doctor detects the fetal heartbeat, then there cannot be an abortion. That was passed in North Dakota and has already been struck down by a federal judge who has said this is blatantly unconstitutional. It violates Roe v. Wade and about 40 years worth of Supreme Court jurisprudence. So it's a great bill if you're a lawyer and you want to
Used to be settled.
Defend the state.
Used to be settled if you were an escaped slave, you had to be returned. I mean, precedent for the Supreme Court changes over time as technology changes, as the social consciousness changes. Just like those were horrible decisions, I think Roe versus Wade, Casey versus Planned Parenthood, Griswold versus Connecticut. At some point, those are going to be reevaluated in light of new technology. They couldn't detect fetal heartbeats back when Roe versus Wade. They couldn't do four-dimensional ultrasounds and look at facial features on a 10-week-old baby. Those things just couldn't be done back then. Now they can, and you get some of that in front of people.
The test is viability.
Well, in the committee meeting, bless her heart, as my mother used to say, Mary Sue McClurkin said that we would test the fetal heartbeat with a stethoscope. I mean,
that's not exactly that technological advance that Barron was talking about just a minute ago.
They need to get a better representative. These are serious businesses. This woman doesn't know what she's talking about.
This is also, let me say this real quick. I know Claire wants to make a point, but Mary Sue McClurkin also passed some legislation last session that has been challenged that has to do with abortion clinics in Alabama. A federal court judge here has stayed the implementation of a piece of that until at least March 24th. The Planned Parenthood and the ACLU have filed summary judgment briefs in that case. So really the only thing that comes out of these kinds of bills in the legislature is challenges in court that wind up being struck down.
Well, Eric Johnson's a smart guy, and he knows what he's doing. I mean, he's an attorney that lives and breathes this type of legislation.
Right,
and
social.
Yeah, social matters. And listen, we are a conservative state. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Claire, you know this as well as anybody.
And I agree with Barron on most aspects of this. I mean, but there again, we are always passing laws in the state of Alabama, from immigration to abortion, you name it, where it goes before the courts and is struck down or something. We're all about employment for lawyers in the state of Alabama during the legislative
perfectly
process.
fine with that. But let me just say this, and this goes back to Barron's point about payday lending last week and about abortion this week. It seems inconsistent to me that you have a legislature that will tell women what they can do with their bodies, will tell people where they can smoke, employers that they have to allow folks to bring guns onto the property, how old you have to be to visit a tanning bed salon, all of these kinds of very personal regulations, but the legislature does not want to regulate payday lending. It just seems intellectually inconsistent to me.
It's too much government regulation, and as Republicans, we should have less regulations about most of these things.
Well, I'm all for that. I think we need to get government off our backs, out of our bedrooms. And
well, I agree with you on most of that. On the pro-life issue, it's different because you're dealing with a live human being.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
And when you're dealing with a live human being, we can't say, well, you know, it's my 2-year-old. I can raise him how I want. If I want to hang him from the ceiling fan and choke him to death, that's my responsibility. I mean, you can't do that.
My parents did that to me. I mean, come on.
but it's either alive or it's not. The debate is not what you can do with a woman's body. The debate is it a living fetus or not? If you say it is, then you should regulate the heck out of keeping it alive. If you say it's not, then it's a free-for-all.
Well, I think, unfortunately, for a lot of folks, a lot of these bills are going to end up in court. They're probably going to get struck down, just like the gay marriage thing.
And that's good for my kind of folks. We're all right with that. Keep it up. Keep up the good
okay.
work.
And then the argument's been over the last 3 years. Here we have a conservative Republican House and Senate, and we cannot get any pro-life bills passed.
Yeah.
That's because the couple of special interest groups have got some heavy hands in the Alabama lobbying force, and so this year they're trying to let the Republicans put their feet and their conservative minds forth before an election year to maybe try to get something passed. That's what this is about.
Let's be honest.
So pandering to the base.
Pandering to the base.
Half these guys don't believe half of what they say, or even probably a third of what they say. But one of the interesting things to me, they passed this. They want to pass a bill that limits the time that you have to pay alimony. I guess some of these guys,
That'd be nice. Claire and I are laughing the hardest at that. Sorry.
They don't want to pay too long. I guess those ex-mistresses that are now wives, they want to get rid of them as fast.
We would have liked to have had some.
It might be worthwhile to look at the folks who have sponsored this bill, and there was a similar bill that was passed by the Florida legislature that Governor Scott struck down. This is something that should be regulated by the courts.
Right.
There's already a system in place in Alabama for judges to consider alimony and how long the alimony payment should last and how expensive they should be. So I really don't think that this is an issue that needs to be brought up this session.
Yeah, that goes to meddling with the lawyers that do divorce cases. They would not be for this, I can't imagine.
Well, I'm telling you, my wife would say, you're going to pay alimony for the rest of your living, the rest of your life.
She might prefer to be a widow as opposed to a divorcee. We'll talk later, Susan.
It's a lot of stuff going on, a lot more to happen. I want to thank y'all for being here today and sharing your thoughts with us. We want to thank you for watching The V. We're here every Sunday on ABC 3340 at 11 and also on 32 in Montgomery. Thank you for watching. You can catch us every day at AOreporter.com. Have a great week.